The phone rang just after sunset, that quiet hour when the house feels like it's holding its breath. I answered with a smile I didn't know would be my last for a while. "Mom," my son said, voice light, almost cheerful. "I'm getting married tomorrow." "Oh, and I emptied your bank accounts. Sold the house too. Everything's done." There was a pause. Then the line clicked dead. I stared at the phone and laughed. A strange sound escaped me, half disbelief, half something sharper. "Ha ha ha." It echoed in the kitchen, bounced off the walls, and startled even me. He really thought he'd won. Before I tell you how this all unfolded, let me say this. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Because this story didn't start with that phone call. It started decades earlier, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. I'm Eleanor Whitmore, and at 62, I truly believed I had seen every trick life had up its sleeve. I lived quietly in suburban Ohio, in what most people thought was a simple two-bedroom home. I worked part-time at the local library, shelved books, chatted with regulars, and enjoyed a peaceful routine. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, just calm. My son, Caleb, was 34. Smart, driven, always hungry for more. Ever since his father passed away when Caleb was 12, it had been just the two of us. I worked double shifts. I skipped vacations. I wore the same coat for years, so he could have new shoes. I told myself that was love. I was so proud of him. So proud. The first crack appeared 3 months before everything collapsed. Caleb called me one afternoon, his voice smooth, warm, almost syrupy. "Mom, I want to help you set up automatic bill payments. Make things easier. You shouldn't have to worry about this stuff anymore." Something in my chest tightened. Just a little. But I ignored it. He was my son. My only child. Of course I trusted him. I gave him the information. I didn't know I was handing him the knife. 6 weeks later, he came over with his fiancée, Lila. She was 26. Beautiful in a way that felt sharp, like glass catching the light. We sat in my living room while she looked around slowly, too slowly. Her eyes lingered on the furniture, the framed photos, the old clock on the mantel. "This place must be worth a fortune now," she said casually, smiling without warmth. "Property values around here have exploded." "It's my home," I replied. Simple. Firm. Caleb laughed quickly, squeezing her hand. "She's just curious, Mom." But his eyes didn't match his smile. And my stomach turned. Then came the Sunday morning that stole my breath. I always checked my accounts with my coffee. Always. Routine keeps you safe, or so I thought. That morning, my hands began to shake. My savings account, the one built over decades of discipline and grief and hard choices, showed almost nothing. My checking account looked like it had been drained bone dry. I felt something hot rise up my throat. I called the bank. The woman on the line was kind, too kind, the way people are when they already know the answer. "The transfers were authorized online," she said gently. "They were sent to an account under Caleb Whitmore's name. Is that your son?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I hung up and sat at my kitchen table for hours, staring at nothing. My chest ached. My eyes burned. Weeping came in waves, quiet at first, then harder. I pressed my palm to my mouth, so the sound wouldn't escape. After everything I'd given him this? And then the next morning, the phone rang again.
"Caleb."
Cheerful. Excited.
"Mom."
"Big news. The wedding's tomorrow. Riverside Country Club. It's going to be perfect."
My throat closed.
"Caleb, my money." "Oh, that." He laughed. Actually laughed. "I needed it. You'll be fine. Social Security covers your basics, right? Oh, and I sold a house. Power of attorney. You signed those papers last year. You've got 30 days to move out." The world tilted. I should have screamed. I should have collapsed. Instead, something cold and steady settled inside me. I laughed again. Softer this time. Slower. Tears slid down my cheeks, but my lips curved upward. Because Caleb had no idea what he'd just done. If you're listening right now and thinking, how could a child do this? Stay with me. What comes next is where everything changes. He thought he had taken my life from me. He thought he had cornered a helpless woman. But the house he sold wasn't the house I lived in. And that mistake, was about to cost him everything. In the next part, I'll tell you why that phone call didn't break me and how one signature changed my son's future forever. After the call ended, the house went quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of silence that rings in your ears. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my cheek, then slowly lowered it onto the table. My hands were steady now. That surprised me. No shaking. No panic. Just a deep, icy calm spreading through my chest. I laughed again, a soft breathy sound, almost a whisper.
Ha ha ha.
Oh, Caleb, I murmured. You really have no idea. You see, the house he bragged about selling? The one he thought was my only safety net? That wasn't my home at all. 15 years earlier, after my mother-in-law passed, I had learned something valuable. Never put everything in one basket and never assume people understand paperwork just because they grew up under your roof. I had bought a small rental property on Oak Street back then. Nothing fancy. Just smart. I kept it in my personal name for tax reasons and rented it out to a lovely couple who paid on time and treated it like their own. That was the house Caleb sold. My real home, the one I was sitting in right now, sipping cold coffee at my kitchen table, was mortgage-free and held in a family trust under my late husband's mother's estate. Caleb had grown up here, slept in the bedrooms, eaten at this table, and still never bothered to learn how it was legally structured. Ah, that irony almost made me cry again. He thought he'd stripped me bare. In reality, he had just set himself on fire. I wiped my cheeks and stood up. I walked to the filing cabinet in the hallway, the one he used to call my paper graveyard. He'd teased me for years about how meticulous I was. Receipts, contracts, copies of everything. I pulled open the drawer and smiled. There it was. The Oak Street folder. Lease agreements.
Deeds.
Tenant records.
Dates.
Signatures. Proof stacked neatly, like quiet soldiers waiting for orders. And then there was the power of attorney Caleb claimed I'd signed. I knew immediately it was a lie. I had never given anyone that kind of control. Not ever. Not even when I'd been sick. The thought made my stomach twist, and for a moment the laughter vanished. A heavy sadness took its place. Had he really planned this? Had he watched me, measured me, waited? Weeping crept back in, slow and aching. Tears dropped onto the folder, blurring the ink. I raised you better than this, I whispered to the empty room. But sadness doesn't erase truth. And the truth was this. Selling a rented property with active tenants is a legal disaster. Lawsuits. Fraud investigations. Buyers furious. Tenants protected. And forged documents? That wasn't just immoral. That was criminal. I made myself a fresh cup of coffee.
Strong.
Bitter. Grounding. I sat back down and started writing a list.
Bank.
Police. Lawyer. Tenants. Evidence. Halfway through, my hand slowed. He was my son. The thought landed heavy in my chest. I saw him at 6 years old with skinned knees. At 16, slamming doors and apologizing later. At 22, hugging me after graduation, saying he couldn't have done it without me. Was I really ready to destroy him? Then I remembered his voice.
Light.
Casual. Almost bored. You'll be fine with your Social Security. Something hardened inside me. I wasn't destroying him. I was refusing to disappear quietly. If you were in my place, would you protect your child or protect yourself? Think about that for a moment. That night, sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed every conversation, every small warning I'd brushed aside. By morning, my decision was made. I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I would gather everything.
Calmly.
Methodically. And then I would give my son one choice. Make it right, or face the full weight of what he'd done. The phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. I answered, already knowing the sound of his voice would never feel the same again. In the next part, I'll tell you what happened when the bank started asking questions and how my son realized for the first time that I was no longer the woman he could control. The bank representative's voice was calm, professional, almost rehearsed. Mrs. Whitmore, we've flagged several large transfers from your account. We need to ask a few questions. I smiled to myself. The game had begun. Yes, I said softly. Those transfers were not authorized by me. There was a pause on the line. A longer one this time. I'm very sorry to hear that, she replied. We'll open a fraud investigation immediately. When I hung up, my heart was pounding, but not with fear. With clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop hoping someone will be who they never were. Next came the lawyer. Samuel Reed had been part of my book club for years. Quiet man. Sharp mind. The kind who listened more than he spoke. When I told him what had happened, his expression shifted from disbelief to something colder. Eleanor, he said carefully, this isn't a family dispute. This is felony-level fraud. The words settled heavy in the room. Felony.
Prison. I nodded anyway.
I need discretion, I told him. And I need to understand every option before I act. He agreed. Immediately. By noon, paperwork was moving. Accounts frozen. Title company notified. The Oak Street sale flagged. Everything Caleb thought was sealed and untouchable began unraveling thread by thread. That's when my phone rang again. Caleb. His voice was tight this time, the cheer gone. Mom, why is the bank calling me? They're saying there's a fraud investigation. I took a slow breath. Because money was taken without my permission. But I'm your son, he snapped. Just tell them it's fine. Is it fine? I asked gently. Is stealing everything I saved for my future fine? Silence. Then defensiveness. Sharp. Angry. I borrowed it. Lila, and I will pay you back. And the house? I asked. The one with tenants. The one you sold illegally. He raised his voice. I had power of attorney. I never signed one, I said. Another pause. Longer. Colder. Yes, you did, he said finally. Last year. When you were sick. The room spun for just a second. I remembered that week. The hospital. The fever. The haze. Papers brought to my bedside. Insurance forms, he'd said. I trusted him. Signed without glasses. Without clarity. My chest ached like something had cracked open. I want to see those documents, I said. You're making this difficult, he replied. The wedding is tomorrow. Don't ruin this for me. I laughed then. Not kindly. Not softly. You ruined this the moment you decided I was disposable. I hung up. That evening, my neighbor Ruth texted me. She'd seen a for sale sign appear and disappear at Oak Street. Asked if everything was okay. No, I typed back. But it will be. We met for coffee the next morning. Ruth had been a paralegal for 30 years. When she heard the details, her mouth tightened. He's in serious trouble, she said. And he deserves to be. Hearing it out loud from someone else made my eyes burn. Weeping crept in again, slow and silent. I wiped my face and nodded. That afternoon, an email arrived from the title company. The power of attorney was invalid. The notary license was expired. The date didn't match my hospital records. Funds from the sale were frozen. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof. I forwarded it to Samuel with one line. He forged everything. My phone buzzed almost immediately. A text from Caleb. Please come to the wedding. I want you there. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. I'll be there. Let him smile. Let him celebrate. Let him believe he'd gotten away with it. Have you ever watched someone celebrate knowing the truth was about to catch them? Stay with me. I chose my dress that night. Simple. Elegant. Navy blue. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked calm. Strong. Dangerous in the quietest way. In the next part, I'll take you inside the wedding, where I smiled, toasted, and waited while justice gathered right behind the curtain. The wedding was exactly what you'd imagine when stolen money is trying to look like happiness. Crystal chandeliers. White roses everywhere. Champagne flowing like water. The Riverside Country Club glowed as if nothing ugly had ever touched it. I arrived early. Caleb's face lit up when he saw me. Relief rushed over his features, and for a moment, just a moment, I almost felt that old ache in my chest soften. "Mom," he said, hugging me tightly. "I knew you'd come. I knew you'd understand." If only understanding had been the problem. Lila appeared beside him, radiant in a dress that probably cost more than my first car. She smiled at me, sharp and practiced. "I'm so glad you're here, Eleanor. I told Caleb you'd come around. Family always does. Always does." I smiled back.
Calm. Polite.
Deadly quiet. The ceremony passed in a blur. Vows about love and trust echoed through the room, and each word felt like salt rubbed into an open wound. I sat in the front row, hands folded, face serene, while my son promised loyalty to the woman who had helped him betray me. Ha ha ha, life has a dark sense of humor. At the reception, I played my role perfectly. I toasted. I posed for photos. I laughed at the right moments. Inside, something steady and unbreakable held me upright. Then, just as they cut the cake, my phone buzzed. A message from Samuel. Police investigation opened. Fraud charges moving forward. Are you ready? I looked across the room at Caleb. He was laughing, glass raised, completely unaware that his world was already collapsing. Not yet, I whispered to myself. Let him have this moment. 3 days later, they came to my door. Unannounced. Uninvited. Caleb stormed inside first, anger rolling off him in waves. Lila followed, her eyes cold, calculating. What did you do? Caleb demanded. The title company froze everything. The buyers are threatening lawsuits. They're talking about forgery. I closed the door slowly, calmly, because it was forged. He pointed at me, furious. You signed those papers. I signed blank pages while delirious with fever. I replied. You lied. You exploited me. And you committed fraud. Lila stepped forward, her voice sharp. This is ridiculous. You're old. You can't manage money anymore. We were helping you. Helping. The word made something snap inside me. Helping doesn't empty my accounts, I said quietly. Helping doesn't try to make me homeless. Her mask slipped. Everything you have would have gone to Caleb anyway, she snapped. We just needed it sooner. The room went silent. Get out, I said. Caleb stepped closer, towering over me now. If you don't fix this, we'll tell everyone you're confused. We'll say you have dementia. We'll bury you in court fees. For the first time, fear flickered. Not of them, but of the stranger my son had become. I straightened. My voice didn't shake. Get out of my house.
Now.
They left in a storm of rage and curses, slamming the door so hard the walls trembled. I sank onto the couch, hands shaking, breath uneven. Weeping came hard then.
Deep.
Grief for the child I had lost long before this moment. The next morning, I called Samuel. File the police report, I said. Press charges. All of them. There was a pause. Are you sure? Yes, I replied. Completely. This is the moment most people back down. This is where guilt usually wins. Would you have stood your ground? A week later, Caleb called again.
His voice was softer now.
Smaller. Mom, please. I was wrong. I'll return the money. Just make this stop. How long? I asked. 6 months. Maybe a year. You don't have that time, I said. His voice cracked. You're destroying my life. No, I replied, tears sliding silently down my cheeks. You did that. I hung up. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I had chosen myself. In the final part, I'll take you into the courtroom, through the verdict, and to the moment I finally understood that choosing justice didn't make me heartless, it made me free. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Bright lights. Hard benches. No warmth anywhere. I sat still, hands folded in my lap, listening as my son's lies unraveled one by one. Bank records. Forged documents. Expert testimony. Dates that didn't match. Signatures that trembled with sickness, not consent. Caleb wouldn't look at me at first. When he finally did, his eyes were hollow. Not angry. Not defiant. Just empty. And that hurt more than anything else. Ah, this was the boy I once rocked to sleep, now a man waiting for judgment. His lawyer tried to paint me as confused. Lonely. Vindictive. I almost laughed. Almost. When it was my turn to speak, my voice came out steady. Stronger than I felt. I did not give my son permission to steal from me, I said. I did not give him permission to sell my property. I did not give him permission to erase my future. The words echoed.
Clear.
Final. Caleb took the stand after me. His story cracked under pressure. Answers tangled. Sweat beaded on his forehead. The truth cornered him, and for the first time, he looked scared. Truly scared. The jury didn't take long.
Guilty.
The word landed like thunder. My chest tightened. Tears blurred my vision, but they weren't just tears of pain. There was relief there too.
Deep.
Exhausting.
Real.
At sentencing, the judge spoke slowly, deliberately. These were not mistakes, she said. These were calculated choices. 7 years. Caleb sobbed. Lila froze, her face drained of color. When they led my son away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. I didn't smile.
I didn't wave.
I didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. I answered only one. Do you regret pressing charges against your own son? I thought about the sleepless nights, the betrayal, the fear, the strength it took to stand alone. No, I said. I regret trusting someone who didn't respect me. Life after the trial was quieter, slower, gentler. I rebuilt. I helped others protect themselves. I laughed again, real laughter this time. I traveled. I made friends who chose me, not my assets. The pain never vanished completely. Some nights I still cried, weeping for what could have been, for the child I lost, for the illusion of unconditional safety. But I also found something priceless. Myself, my dignity, my voice, my worth. And if you're listening to this right now, sitting with that tight feeling in your chest because someone you love has crossed a line, hear me clearly. You are not cruel for choosing justice. You are not selfish for choosing safety. You are not heartless for refusing to be destroyed. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Thank you for listening. Truly. If this story traveled to you, if it found you when you needed it, then every word was worth it.